What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with the Infinity Edge podcast brought to you by the esports department. This episode, as well as all Thursday episodes moving forward, are going to be for public consumption instead of behind the paywall. But if you want to see all of our videos and listen to our wonderful voices and wonderful takes, then you can subscribe to the esportsdepartment.com using the promo code IEDGE. That's IEDGE, IEDGE.
Checks
It's
out.
like a spelling bee. It's like a spelling bee. Uh, but basically, we are here again for League of Legends DraftKings, the LCS and the LEC. The LCS is in the final portion of the lock-in tournament. The LEC is going into week 2 of the regular season. We're going to go over our tier lists from the first week and talk about if our opinions on any teams have changed, which, I mean, no opinions should really be changing that drastically so far. But it's always good to make sure we keep tabs on that. And then we'll do the Bankroll challenge and talk about the LEC slate for Friday. But that's about it. So we have Alan 1 and Alan 2, Ghost and the Hef. Ghost, how are things?
Things are going good, except for the DFS bankroll is kind of going down a bit. But we have the LCS to talk about. Alan, how you doing?
I'm doing really good. I'm really excited about this LEC slate. I think it looks particularly juicy. There's a lot of combinations I could see winning.
Well, before we hop into the LEC, we're going to start with the LCS Lockin. We're in the semifinals, played on patch 11.1 still. We have 100 Thieves versus Cloud9 on Friday. DraftKings doesn't have anything out right now as far as slates are concerned, but they might do showdowns or combine these two best of threes into one slate. Who knows? Keep your eyes out for more information on that. But 100 Thieves versus Cloud9 going to be on Friday. Michael, who you got? Who do you like? Who's winning this thing?
I think that C9 is the better team. That's been my position so far, and I'm not really ready to change it yet. It's it was a good first round for 100 Thieves, and they also played well in the group stage. But it's tough to think that Golden Guardians plus someday is going to take down C9, even though Alfari hasn't looked, or not Alfari, Fudge hasn't looked amazing and Perks hasn't looked amazing. But I think that's all been kind of overblown. Perks has really taken a secondary role on this team so far. I don't think it's because Perks forgot how to play League of Legends. It's probably just how the games have been going. Teams may also be focusing Perks a little bit more, trying to limit the opportunities they have to carry games. We see that somewhat often. Like Faker was really famous for being like 2v1, 3v1 to try to stop them from influencing the game. And Perks hasn't gotten that kind of attention, specifically with like a ton of people coming to their lane and trying to dive them on the tower and stuff. But still, I think teams know that the less gold Perks gets, the lower chance he's going to absolutely dominate them in a game. With that being said, I think Perks against Amante is going to be a big, like mid diff. And I don't think C9 is going to leave Perks alone for much longer. So I would expect Blabber and Perks to do a lot better moving forward. That's about it.
All right, sounds good. I'll throw this question over to you, Alan, since it seems like Michael's firmly on Cloud9. Is there a way 100 Thieves could win this series, and through what lane do they have advantages?
So yeah, I do think that there's a chance that 100 Thieves will win this series. I would put it around like 40-ish%. I think I'm kind of in Michael's boat where I think a lot of people are on 100 Thieves this week. I've seen a lot of people in the space, putting on Twitter the money line for 100 Thieves and stuff like that. So I would probably want to lean the other way here. I think that what we thought Cloud9 was the more talented team coming into the season, and I don't think that there's any reason to believe that's not true right now. I do think that Perks is a pretty big mid diff with Demonte. Now, if 100 Thieves is going to win, I think it's obviously through the top lane, like they have since Someday became a part of the team essentially. So if they could take advantage of the Fudge Someday matchup, I think that that's a place that they could get ahead. But I would guess that Cloud9 also knows that to be the case and will be putting Fudge in some weak side matchups and trying to win elsewhere. And I think I just trust the rest of the map for Cloud9 a little bit more. Um, this one, I think that a lot of people, especially if it becomes a showdown type slate, I think a lot of people will try to play like 3-2s or something of that nature because they think that it's really close and this is going to be a 5 game series. And in that scenario, I would definitely want to play heavier towards the Cloud9 side because if somebody's going to win like 3-0 in this series, I think it's Cloud9 showing up to their full potential.
Okay, Michael, anything else to add on that?
Um, I don't really. I I think that C9 will just win. If I mean it's boring, but I think that's just kind of the case. Going into the tournament, I did think that like if 100 Thieves had a chance to win this thing, or a tournament in North America, it's really now because of the cohesion of their team, and maybe Perks is still ignored by their team for the next round, but I think it's more likely that they kind of fix some of the negative things that have been going on and uh, and have a pretty easy time with 100 Thieves.
Okay. Just to jump back on your comment there, Alan, about Showdown. It's 4 spots for Showdown and 2 captains, 2 flexes. 1 captain has to be from each team. So with that in mind, you can't really do a 3-1. So how would you guys focus on attacking those contests?
Mm, I'd for 100 Thieves, I'd probably want closer. Um, that's assuming that closer can just play the other half of the map whenever Blabber's like going top lane, closer tries to go bot lane and make some plays happen. I do think that's most likely what they'll try to do. Part of the reason why I think 100 Thieves doesn't have a great chance of winning this match is because Cloud9, in my opinion, should be able to ban out Demonte pretty easily and kind of force them into a more traditional mid lane champion pool instead of their global champion pool. And that's going to be a big problem because if if they gave away Twisted Fate and Closer and Demonte were able to go top lane or bot lane to try to create plays elsewhere on the map, um, it would be a pretty good strategy against Cloud9. But I think anyone kind of can figure that out. So I'd be shocked if C9 didn't get rid of that. Um, and that's kind of why I think it's going to be more on Closer to keep it close. Haha. If if the match is going to be close, it'll probably be because both junglers are on carry champions, playing on other halves of the map. Closer can get a couple of kills even in a loss. That's probably the safest way to go. I wouldn't play Demonte. It'd be Closer or FBI for me.
Okay. With those new rules, what do you think, Alan?
It's interesting. So that is 100% the has the slate come out? Did it just come out as we were talking, or is that just how they've been doing showdowns this year?
That's how they've been doing Showdown since Worlds.
Oh, okay.
So your
So
captain has to have 1 from each team and flex from 1 from each team. So
so
it's a 2v2.
I gotcha. So I'll be honest, I've only played showdowns on FanDuel.com, so it'd
The
be
inferior website.
it would take me a little time. I actually think their showdowns make a lot more sense. Now, in the grand scheme of like contest size and all of that stuff, it is obviously a way inferior website. But some of their like rules for scoring and stuff are kind of interesting to me. But anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. I would agree. Closer, I think like the way that you're probably going to be able to get a decent captain on Cloud9 is probably play like double jungle captain in that situation. So you would play Blabber and Closer, and that construction is obviously going to be very very popular if it fits. But I think that that's a good way to go about it for sure. Um, yeah, it would take me a little time to think of some contrarian plays in a 4-man
Right.
showdown slate for sure.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I just had to double check the rules for Showdown.
Yeah. No, thank you for
Perks
that.
Captain will probably go under owned. You
Yeah.
should probably just play Perks Captain and then see if that helps you fit stuff together. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they posted the Showdown slate and Blabber was higher priced than Perks.
Interesting.
That'd be interesting if they did something like that.
Yeah.
I doubt they'll do it, but that'd be kind of cool.
All right. Well, moving on to the second game that's going to be played on Saturday, we have Evil Geniuses versus Team Liquid. Both of these teams 2-0'd their opponent in the quarterfinals. This seems like one of the more interesting matchups of the week. I think TL might edge it out here, but we'll start with you, Alan, on this one. Who do you got? Evil Geniuses or Team Liquid?
I think that Team Liquid with Santorin looks like they might just be toying with the league at this point. Like they they were never seriously challenged by FlyQuest in that series, and they did some goofy shit at the end of games and throughout. So I think that Team Liquid is probably far and away the favorite right now in the LCS. Now, obviously, I think Cloud9 could get there by the end of the year, but like if Cloud9 and Team Liquid were to play tomorrow, I would definitely bet on Team Liquid. So I think that Team Liquid is pretty substantially ahead of Evil Geniuses at this point. Evil Geniuses hasn't really played anyone. Their group was much easier than the Team Liquid group that I think had Cloud9 and TSM. Oh, 100 Thieves in it as well. And then the only other decent team in Evil Geniuses group was TSM, if I remember correctly. So I think Evil Geniuses is a little overrated by playing easy competition up until this point. Obviously, they didn't really struggle with Golden Guardians either, but you wouldn't expect them to struggle with Golden Guardians. I rate FlyQuest much higher than Golden Guardians, I think. So the fact that Team Liquid was basically playing with FlyQuest makes me like Team Liquid here a lot. So whatever I could do to get the best captain I could get for Team Liquid, and then just kind of take some Evil Geniuses punts. I think that's how I would approach this particular showdown slate.
All right, Michael, we'll kick it over to you. Evil Geniuses versus Team Liquid.
Okay, so you had it reversed. Evil Geniuses beat Cloud9.
That's right.
And that was one of the matches where Perks looked bad, but it's just one game. But the thing with Evil Geniuses, this is kind of narrative driven. I do agree that Team Liquid is probably the better team long term, but Evil Geniuses, with Impact playing as well as he is right now, I think Impact in general is overrated by North American fans. Alfari is apparently more overrated. So that's just two overrated top laners going at it. One of them will probably look good because they're playing against one another. In the jungle, Santorin against Venskaren, I do prefer Santorin for sure. But I think that there's definitely a chance that we get Santorin on something like Nidalee, Lilia, or Talia, and then Svenskeren just runs it over with like Hecarim or even Udi or something like that, which we've been seeing in the LCK as a response to some of these picks. I think it's also more likely that Evil Geniuses play something like Pantheon in the jungle or in the support role, which it's not really as popular in support, but Ignore is very good at it. And Jizuke against Jensen, I think, is a lot more even than most people. So I could see Jizuke going off. One thing that we saw last night was a Kassadin game, and Jizuke is like I could see Jizuke getting a pentakill on Kassadin or like Echo, something like that. Maybe not as much Echo for a pentakill, but I could see him pulling out Echo in this matchup, which would be pretty good for them. And then in the bot lane, I would not be surprised if we saw Team Liquid play some of this like double Moonstone bot lane, because I think that their academy team did that, and Jat seems to be kind of forward thinking in that way. The one issue with that is that it's not unstoppable. Like it's a good concept, and playing like the economy side of League of Legends is a smart thing to do. I've been stressing that for years, but when you put it into practice thinking that it's unbeatable and then you get Evil Geniuses counterpicking it, then you can get into some bad spots. So I could see Deftly and Ignar actually winning the bot lane matchup if Team Liquid kind of overlooks the draft and like tricks themselves into playing too much of like the Moonstone meta. Not saying it's bad, it's just there are counters to it if you pick ban the right way. Um I do expect Team Liquid to win. Um but if there is some kind of combined slate, I'd probably want to do C9 Evil Geniuses and have some lineups like that, because I think it's more likely that Evil Geniuses gets 2 or 3, or yeah, they're more likely to get 2 wins than 100 Thieves. So I think those are the kinds of lineups I'd be looking towards.
All right, lots of good information there. Alan, we'll kick it back over to you for closing thoughts if you have anything, or we can move on to the LEC.
Yeah, I'll just say I feel exactly the opposite. I think it's a lot more likely that 100 Thieves gets 1 to 2 games than Evil Geniuses for me. Even though I did have that wrong, you're right. Cloud9 was the one good team in Evil Geniuses group. The rest was like FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, those guys, and Dignitas. So yeah, I think that Evil Geniuses is probably coming into this one just a tad overrated. I do think that the bot lane is probably closer than people think. Like I think that Ignar is a really good player, and people only talk about Core JJ in North America, and for good reason. He's a great player. Probably the single best player we've had in North America for a period of time. But Ignar is not that far off. But I do think that the definitely tactical matchup probably is tactical favored, and then everything else for Team Liquid I think is favored or even in the top lane. So I see Team Liquid sweeping this. Honestly, I've made a bet on them sweeping or winning -1.5 games. So if it was some sort of combined slate, I would probably look at how do I get the best Team Liquid Cloud9 lineup I can, and then I'll just enter it into single entries and stuff. That's what I did last week with LCS, and it was actually more profitable than my GPP play has been this year for sure. So
Okay, sounds like you guys are on different sides. Interesting.
You're dead to me.
Gotta have to start disagreeing at some point. But
yeah.
we're gonna hop on over to
Unforgivable.
LEC, and I believe you guys wanted to talk about how things
Actually,
went.
before we do that, 1 second before we do that, sorry
Okay.
for cutting you off. However,
He's not
during
sorry.
that segment, I'm really not sorry, but I am. I don't like interrupting people. It's really rude. But I don't want us to move past the LCS, because I did have one question for Hef.
Sure. What you got?
So you said that Team Liquid is now far and away the favorite in North America. Yes? Are you saying
I
rest
think
of season? Or are you
yeah,
saying just right now?
no, I think like right now I would take them against anyone probably -1.5 games. I think that Cloud9 could get there. If everything goes right for TSM, I think they could get there. If everything goes right for Evil Geniuses, 100 Thieves, they could probably get there. But I think right now the most established team in North America is Team Liquid pretty clearly.
So how would you recommend using a piece of information like that? Because I mean, it's because like we're not going to be able to play many slates with Team Liquid until we get into week 1. But like in week 1, do you think that depending on matchups, we don't even know the matchups for week 1, right? So like I don't know what's going to happen. But do you see yourself being like heavy on Team Liquid in week 1, trying to be over the field?
It's an interesting thought. I mean, I'd have to, see the matchups and look through them. But yeah, I probably would. I mean, provided they're not playing like a shitter team and and then they're like 80% owned or whatever. Like it depends on what you're gonna, no team's ever 80% owned. That's obviously an exaggeration. But if they're gonna be like hugely owned, then I'm not that interested in them. Like G2 this week, for example, I think, they're probably like 90% to win, but I'm not like in love with playing
Using
them in
them 90% of your
DFS.
lineups, yeah. Okay. I think that's the cop-out answer. Weak sauce. Team Liquid to win the split is what I was hoping for. Have you looked at futures? Do they have something like that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Team Liquid was before the year was like +250, I think, or something like that. Cloud9 was like +125, somewhere around there.
and you haven't looked at it since then.
No.
I'm just saying, if you want to, if you think Team Liquid's so good, maybe bet $100 on Team Liquid.
I've got some Team Liquid futures, so.
Oh, true.
Already
So
has them in.
can I? So I'll do C9 rest of season, and you do Team Liquid rest of season, and we'll just see where it ends up.
I'm down with that. Yeah, I'll ride.
right.
I'll ride the Team Liquid train.
All right, for $1 billion.
Yeah, you can.
Good, cool.
Yep, you can put that debt on my future children and whatever beyond.
I thought you said Dion. I'm like, who is Dion? Why is Dion getting stuck with your debt? All right.
I wish I had
now
Dion
we
for
can
my
move on.
gambling debts. All right.
Thank
All
you
right,
for giving in to my will.
All right, officially good to move on to LEC. We're going to talk about the first Super Week. We had 3 games. You guys want to talk a little bit about your tier list? Has anything really changed for you guys? Well, yep.
Kind of, but not very much. So in week 1, Alan and I both had G2 as the top team, Fnatic as the second team, and then Rogue and Mad Lions as 3 and 4, but we had them reversed. We both had Misfits in the next spot. Then we had Vitality, XL, SO4, SK, and Astralis in a big jumble. I think both of us agree that it's really 5 good teams and 5 pretty bad teams. The only thing that I changed was moving Rogue Warriors up a little, or not Rogue Warriors, moving Rogue up a little bit, because even though I have them roughly in the same tier with the same other good teams and below G2, I think that they are poised for a very good season, which I'm very happy about because I like Hans Sama a lot. Fnatic looked really bad, and most people probably overreact, and I'm not saying that Fnatic's going to be bad, but based off of what I saw in week 1, I'm definitely okay with moving Rogue above them. And then Misfits is the team that I have like aspirations for. Like, I think they have a chance to be very good this year. But they're still right about even with Fnatic and Mad Lions. So I guess that's the only real change is Rogue up a little bit.
All right, Alan. Quickly, if you have any changes to your tier list or something that surprised you out of week 1.
No, I think it went pretty much according to plan. Michael sent us a little tier list that he had done, and he has G2 as like split winner in the top tier, and I think that is probably what I kind of read from week 1 too. Like, G2 looks so much better than everyone else in the league. Like, I mean, Rogue looks really, really good too, and Larson in particular I think has like made the leap to the second best mid laner in the league pretty handily actually at this point, I think. But I don't know how anyone beats G2 right now. They look really, really, really good, and even in games where they looked like maybe they were like limit testing against SK, they were it was pretty easy for them to bring it back. So I think the only surprise for me in the LEC was just how quickly it came together for G2, and I'm starting to wonder if they're going to lose a game. But I mean, their personalities may get in the way at some point, and they might lose a game because they decide to.
Alrighty, well, we'll hop into Friday's slate here. We got 5 games to talk about. First one to kick it off, XL Esports, who are 1 and 2, versus the Mad Lions, who are also 1 and 2. A bit surprising to me in the first week for Mad Lions because they were going up against G2, which, that's probably a loss 60% of the time. And then you have Mad Lions taking on Astralis and Misfits. I figured they would have came out at least 2-1. But we'll start with you, Michael, on this one. First game of the week, XL versus Mad Lions. Who do you got? Are you using any of these teams in fantasy?
Sure. So, I mean, I probably will based on how teams stack with one another. I was not surprised that Mad Lions went 1 and 2. I liked Misfits a lot in that matchup because I figured they'd be less popular than Mad Lions. But let's just go lane by lane. So Armut against Cries. It's an interesting top lane matchup. I think Armut is more likely to create like a winning difference for their team, but Cries is more likely to get into the super late game on a carry. And even if they don't play Kayle very often throughout the split, that's always something you have to kind of keep in your mind. because there are other champions that are kind of like that. Like someone who goes out there and plays Kale, I wouldn't be shocked if they played G2 or GP. I wouldn't be shocked if they like started playing some Moonstone stuff because it's more focused on the late game team fights and just scaling really hard. And for a team like XL who shouldn't expect to win most of their games, um, I think it's a realistic way to kind of play, even though it's kind of boring for viewers. El Yoyo against Dan, I think El Yoyo is still better. Humanoid against Chekolad. Chekolad had an okay first week for his rookie split, but I think Humanoid's still better. Carzzy and Patrick, I like Carzzy and Kaiser more than I like Patrick and Torre. I think that some people will probably play XL because of what Mad Lions look like, but this is more likely a spot that I just go heavy on Mad. The only reason why I wouldn't go heavy on Mad is because XL scares me with how many kills they give up.
All right,
That's about
Alan,
it.
we'll kick it over to you for XL versus Mad Lions.
Yeah, I think that XL is, alive to win the game. Like I would put them maybe around 40% ish, but I don't think that very many people are going to own them. If they had won one of those matchups last week, maybe then they would probably come in here over owned because people are low on Mad Lions, but I am starting to become a humanoid hater. I I don't really get it with this guy. He plays like he's the shy, but he's never won anything. He
Hmm.
has led solo deaths for like the entirety of his career in the LAC, and it just doesn't seem like a problem that's going away anytime soon. So that bias is there, I will say right away, but I think that Matt Lyons is just like I don't know if they have an adult in the room right now. I think Armut could be that guy, but they do take some very questionable fights at times. They look very Invictus gaming to me at times, except without the winning. So I think the teams against Mad Lions and Mad Lions are probably going to often be very high scoring. They are, I think, second in combined kills per minute in the league right now behind Fnatic. Um, I think that generally those kind of teams drive the scoring in their games unless they get a huge early game lead on Excel, then I don't think it's a great spot to play Mad Lions. But I will probably play quite a bit of both side of this matchup, I would say. But that would make me more on Excel than most folks, I would guess.
So the last game of last week that XL played, they played against G2 and G2 got 28 kills. Do you think that's more about G2 or more about XL?
I think that's probably more about G2, but I think that
Yeah.
like Mad Lions G2 and Fnatic kind of drive the kill score of all of their games through the roof for the most part. But I mean, if Mad Lions were to get a big early game lead on Excel, I could see them, being a low kill score team in that scenario.
Yeah, like if I play like 20 lineups, then I'm not gonna fade Mad Lions, but I could see myself playing only a handful of Mad Lions as primary and secondary stacks because since they've been losing, obviously there's a chance that like they just go for a Fiesta game anyways. Actually, I guess this is a different question to ask. You can both answer this. So, if if you think a team is struggling if a team is struggling in general and they're looking to basically guarantee themselves a win, do you think it's more likely that when they see the opportunity to close out a game, they're going to instantly jump on it and try to end the game early? Or do you think they're going to try to take it slower, play for another Baron, another Elder Dragon? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because we do kind of see that sometimes, especially in the LPL, where like they have a fight where they win and they have three or four members alive against maybe one or two members on the enemy team, and instead of trying to force the base and like take the nexus, they'll just back off onto a Baron or some other objective.
Yeah, that does strike me as a Mad Lions way to play the game as well to me. I mean, I think that they would probably say, all right, we just go to the bear and we win the fight and end that way. But I'd be interested to see what Ghost says.
I think it's kind of team dependent. I think if a team is really struggling, like it's midseason and they need a win, they'll do they'll do the more safer route and take the extra dragon or extra baron to kind of get that win percentage to go up. Obviously, if they ace them, there's 50-second death timers, and all they have to do is roll down mid. That's the obvious choice. But if it's like earlier in the game and they're going to be up soon, I think they just take the safe stuff and back and reset.
Yeah, because my main concern is that a team like XL, the way that they typically draft, I would assume that they're going to get at least one hyper carry in their team and try to play for the late game. So that means in the early game and mid game, if there are objectives that if they're behind and there are objectives that they can contest, I think they'll probably just try to trade objectives or stay away from the Mad Lions in general. So that makes the kills a little bit lower in the early game and mid game. But if they can keep the game close enough until they get to that the part of the game where they're actually scaling and their champions are online, then you could see like one or two extra fights really push the ceiling on this game. So like I just I don't trust XL in the early game. It makes me like Mad Lions less, and maybe that's just a bad reason to play less Mad Lions, but I think that's probably the direction I'm going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I kind of ended up in the same spot too because I thought, Mad Lions probably wins 60% of the time, but maybe 20% of those occasions are like stomps where Excel doesn't really contest anything in the early game and then they lose one late game team fight and the game's over. So I would agree with you there.
All right, good information once again on the first game of the slate. We'll move on to the second game. We have SK Gaming, who are 1-2, versus Schalke 04, 1-2. Alan, we'll kick it over to you this time first. SK Gaming versus Schalke. Who do you like? Who are you picking? Is your Schalke bias going to kick in and you're going to fade him entirely?
No, I think I might go with Schalke now that the tide has kind of turned on them. I don't like the SK lineup very much. The one spot that I think that they could, at least have an argument is in the jungle. Tinks, I think, is probably a better player than Gilius, although I know that that is definitely a controversial statement. But otherwise, like, I think I favor Broken Blade. I think I favor Faker Dogge. I think I favor Neon and Limit. So, so I think that this one is probably a Shaka or nothing kind of game for me. And if SK wins, then I'll just eat shit. But I think that Shaka is probably the only situation where I think this game gets really fantasy relevant is in a poor game in a fiesta, and there is that potential with these teams, and I do think that like Tinks and Blue in particular like to take fights from what I've seen from them in EU Masters. So even if they are in losing situations, I could see them feeding over a few kills at the end of the game. That hasn't totally been the case so far in the LEC, but they were kind of outclassed by laners a lot. I don't know if they're going to be completely outclassed here, so I could see this one getting bloody, and if it gets bloody, I like Shaka in that situation.
Alan's on Schalke, riding that train. Michael, do you have a different opinion, or are you taking Schalke as well against SK Gaming?
I think in games that SK wins, I think that I prefer SK. I think that we saw a lot of good stuff from Tanks last week. Like I mentioned, there was that one play where he like E'd through a minion in order to block a skill shot. I think it was like a Jinx ultimate or something like that, or not a Jinx, a Jin ultimate, and that it's not. It may not end up being fantasy relevant, like ever. Um, but he's the kind of player that if he can get Hecarim or some other kind of overwhelmed jungler, then he could really just go nuclear against Schalke. And like I've said in the past, Schalke is the kind of team that they will fight you to just try to win a game that they have no business winning. Specifically Gilius. So I think I do prefer the SK side if I'm going to play it, but I do agree that it's a game that is not the most interesting for fantasy. But I think most people will say it that way. So you'll probably get some low owned plays out of this. Um, Schalke's been surprisingly slow so far this year in terms of number of kills in their games, and they had that one match where they had to do a base race to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I obviously that's not intended, like when they draft their team composition and everything, but I don't know. I just think that if Schalke wins, SK is going to lay down and die, and if SK is winning, then Schalke's going to be like, we can't let SK beat us, and then just keep fighting. So I think that's probably the way that I'll play it tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. You said you'd be on the SK side if you think they can win. Do you think there's a good chance they can take this game?
Well, yeah, what I'm saying is like in games that SK wins, I think they'll have a higher kill score than in games that
Okay.
Schalke wins on average. In this matchup specifically, like I do think that has Schalke helps SK more than SK helps Schalke.
All right, moving on to the third game of the slate, we have Astralis at 1-2 versus G2 Esports that are 3-0. I don't know how to intro this one. G2 have done G2 things so far, outside of one game, and yeah, it seems like they're pretty big favorites. But maybe Astralis will be the Fredit Briand over in the LCK. We'll get your thoughts on this, Michael. Will Astralis take down the G2 Giants?
Yeah, so I think this is probably going to be the best upset of the year. I think Astralis can win against G2. I'm kidding. I was going to try to get through the whole thing just lying, but I just can't do it. Yeah, they have Nuke Duck. That's my opinion on the situation. The one thing I would say about G2, because I think we deserve credit for this, on Sunday's stream, I think it was, Deficio said that changing out perks and reckless will probably result in G2 being more consistent, but ultimately not as good. And anybody who watches this consistently will know that we said that first. So Deficio obviously watches the Infinity Edge podcast. Hey Deficio, how's it going?
What's your Discord
You're pretty
name?
terrible. Pretty terrible at running organizations, but and you weren't good in the LEC either. But you did parlay your playing career into time on the desk, and then people were like, "Oh my God, this guy talks about League of Legends. He must know what he's talking about." And then you got a job in it, so like, good for you, you got a job out of it. But I mean, really, do you really deserve it? I don't know.
I'm starting to wonder if Michael likes anyone in League of Legends. He hates
Dylan
DRX.
Falco.
He
I
hates
like Dylan
Yamato
Falco.
Cannon. He hates Fnatic.
Well, but
He hates Deficio.
Yamato Cannon is Yamato Cannon. He's successfully tearing down Fnatic from the inside right now as we speak. And you're going to talk to me about me not liking people? Yamato Cannon hates Fnatic so much from when he was a coach that he decided to go onto their team to ruin their team. Like, come on. You can't even compare me to that guy.
Alrighty, well, it sounds like G2 is probably not going to lose to Astralis, but we'll kick it over to Alan for his analysis. Astralis got a chance, or G2 just going to roll him over?
No, they don't have a chance. Are you kidding me? But here's what I will say. I'm going to say the words that you should never say in DraftKings DFS. I don't think you should play G2 this week. I honestly think if you are approaching it... Okay, hold on. If you're playing 70 lineups, obviously you have to play some G2. If you're playing 70 lineups, stop taking my advice. What are you doing watching this show? like I play 20 to 25 lineups at maximum. So if you're playing 70 lineups, you do whatever you do. But if you're playing like 25, 10, something like in that range, don't play G2. There's no reason to do it because I don't think that they show up nearly enough in the winning lineup this week in particular that
This week or this slate?
This slate in particular.
Yeah.
Sorry, this slate in particular that it justifies the 40%, 30% ownership that they're going to get, whatever it is, you know? And so I think that long term it's a bad idea to play G2 in this kind of matchup because let's be real, the difference here is laning in between Astralis and G2. Like, if you told me that Reckless and Mickey X killed Jeskla and Promiscu, 3 times in lane with no help, that would not shock me in the slightest. If you told me Caps killed Nuke Duck twice or 3 times in lane with no help, that wouldn't shock me either, right? And then you just parlay that into an easy win. So to me, I don't think like the team play, which really what you're aiming for when you're stacking teams together is that correlation between team play, right? Uh, is that high for G2 in this scenario? So I think it, I mean it's still possible that G2 gets 25 kills and crushes my dreams tomorrow. That's I'm accepting that when I say don't play them. But I don't think that that's the 35% outcome that they're going to be owned at. Now in
Right.
cash, you should play them. You should probably be in 100% of cash lineups tomorrow is G2 because they're not losing the game.
Anything else to add on, or are we ready to move?
Ready to move.
All right. Our fourth game of the slate is going to be Rogue versus Misfits. Rogue, the only other 3-0 team in the LEC at the moment, versus Misfits. A surprising 2-1 to me, but maybe not to others. This one seems like it could go either way, I'm going to say. But the question I have for you, Michael, will this be a highest kill game? And would you consider a 4-stack out of this? Of either side?
Yep. I will be playing both sides. Um, I I like Misfits more than most people, I think. And you're getting salary savings with them. You could probably stack them with G2. And that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't fade them personally, even if I'm only playing 20 to 25 lineups. Like I'm not max entering right now. Like it's just not. I don't want to do that to my bankroll and stress myself out. I'm working way too much right now, like in real estate, to just throw money around. Um, so I think that if you can get Misfits and G2 together, in any combination, it's going to be a good lineup. Whether or not it cashes, that's another thing, but it's going to be a solid lineup. So the question is, how do they play against Rogue? So Hyrit has been pretty good so far. I don't think that they're better than Adewamne. And this could be a pretty explosive matchup because even though Adewamne is a veteran player and is kind of thought of as like an even keel kind of player, there are some matchups where like he just goes nuclear and can destroy the enemy laner. So I wouldn't I wouldn't forget about that. That seems to be pretty important for this matchup specifically. Razork and Inspired's probably the better player. He is the better player. I think that Inspired's a better jungler, but Razork is in a spot where we can do the overwhelm thing again. So Razork's the kind of guy I think is more likely to play something like um, Olaf, Hecarim, Udyr, one of those types of champions. Even bring out an Echo again. Whereas Inspired is going to be more on the traditional carry champions, I think. I don't remember what they played in week one. Maybe I should look at that to see if my mind should be changed. But Inspired at their peak from last season was on things like Nidalee. Larson against Vetio, I guess is how you're supposed to say it. I think that Larson is the better mid laner. Vetio has big upside, but I just don't think it's going to happen very often against Larson. I will be playing the lineups anyways because you also get G2 stacks, but that's more about the way that DraftKings works instead of the way that like League of Legends works. And then Hansama and Shrimby against Kabe and Vander. This revenge narrative, obviously, with Vander. I think that they're about even. I think Kabe is much better than people give him credit for. He does seem like a passive aggressive little baby, but in League of Legends, that's not the worst mentality to have as an AD carry. When people are going to cater to your every whim, anyways. Uh, I I don't know what Han Sama's horrible games look like. We haven't seen many of those recently, but if Han Sama died 5 times in a row in a Draven match, like I feel like I've seen that before, where Han Sama had like a 0-5-1 Draven match or something. Uh, so I do think that the kill upside is there, and like you guys said, this should be a close match. So if both teams are going into this as like, the team that we're playing against is a good team, we really have to try to win. Does that make them more aggressive or more passive? Um, and that's a difficult question to answer this early in the season because we don't really know what their fallback play styles are with these champions. Also, the last thing before I stop talking, they're switching patches on this, so there is a chance that we see some like fundamentally different things on the new patch. I'm gonna go through the patch notes again right now, and I'll try to see if I see anything important.
Okay, well, we'll kick it over to Alan, get his thoughts on Rogue versus Misfits, and then if you see anything in the patch notes for 11.2 that might stick out, let us know. But we'll kick it
Sure.
over to you, Alan. Rogue versus Misfits.
Yeah, I don't have really anything new to add in the matchup department. I think that Rogue is favored in a few lanes, but I see situations where I think that Misfits could win. What I would say is that both of these teams are actually like I think a little bit too cheap on DraftKings right now. Like you can stack Rogue with Fnatic with like mid captains and some stuff like that. And Larson is obviously a player who does really well when Rogue does really well. So I think that I will play again both sides of this matchup, but I think I will kind of split it down the middle again, like I said with the Mad Lions matchup. So I think that makes me a little tilted towards Misfits compared to everyone else, but I think it just opens up so many combinations for you, and I do think that this game has potential to go big because think it has potential to go long. I think they're two very good teams, and we could see them, get into a situation where they have 4 or 5 team fights throughout the game, and then you're in a really good DraftKings scoring position. So I like both sides of this matchup. I last time when Rogue was in this kind of matchup where they were playing a high combined kills per minute team like Fnatic and Misfits are, I suggested that maybe we should stay away from Rogue because they don't play that type of game, and then they smashed against Fnatic because Fnatic kind of dictated the pace of that game in a lot of ways. And so I've learned my lesson on that front, and I think that Rogue could easily be the 4 stack in a winning lineup tomorrow, and I will have some Rogue 4 stacks out there for sure.
Okay, before hopping into our fifth game of the slate, Michael, anything jump out you for the patches for 11.2?
Yeah, sorta. So there are a decent amount of champion changes. I think that champions from previous metas that will come back are Azir, who we already saw. Do you know if LPL is playing on 11.1 or 11.2? Because Azir was played last night multiple times in LCK and LPL.
No
Just a
idea.
really good champion overall.
Yeah.
Um, so Azir is still in play. Dr. Mundo received buffs. Mundo is very interesting because if people really do kind of go into the Moonstone meta, then they'll have more AP than they generally do, and then Dr. Mundo's ultimate will be kind of broken. So because there's already so many ways to heal yourself, plus being able to build up magic resist is going to be pretty good. Nocturne Nocturne was buffed on this patch, which brings back probably Jungle Nocturne. We only saw Blabber play it last season, I think, and Blabber got destroyed. So I don't think Blabber's going to play it. Senna, I think Senna could come back in the meta as well. She's a very good champion in general. I don't know if she does the Moonstone stuff. I don't know if that's possible, but that's definitely interesting. And then Soraka, Trundle, and Varus. So Soraka, I think, could be really good against low range AD carries like Samira and Kaisa. But she is somewhat vulnerable to getting all in. But in the Moonstone meta, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Soraka. Trundle got buffs to his Q. So I think we probably won't see support Trundle, but jungle Trundle should probably come back, especially if there are tanks locked in. Like let's say it's Samira Leona is the red side 1-2. I could see a Trundle coming out because it'll disrupt Samira potentially, and also you can steal the tank stats from Leona. And then Varus, I think, has already been hasn't been very popular. Probably doesn't make sense against Samira because she can block his ultimate and his Q. But if people are still playing a lot of Kaisa, I think you could get Varus into a good spot. So those are things to watch out for. It doesn't really give me any information on like what teams I think we should like more.
Right.
But if Trundle gets to the point that he was at during last year before the Graves meta, then he could be a problem.
Kabe from Misfits, I remember, was once like thought of as basically a Varus one trick and a very, very good Varus. So that's something to consider in this particular matchup.
Yeah, and Caitlyn received a small buff too. So I think they're trying to bring back the lane bully kind of mentality. Like Jin is kind of able to punish Kaisa and Samira, but not as much as a Varus or a Caitlyn would. Um, so I guess that's just general information to have for like what we see moving forward.
All right. Well, we're rolling into the 5th game, final one on the slate. We have Fnatic, who did pick up a win on the last day of Super Week, versus Vitality, who are also 1-2. I guess Fnatic are maybe okay. Maybe we overreacted a little bit. Maybe it's warranted. Maybe not. We'll kick it over to you first, Alan, on this one. Fnatic versus Vitality. Who do you like, and would you force stack anyone from this matchup?
I like Fnatic, and yes. Is that it? No, no.
All
I
right.
think no. I think Fnatic's in a really, really good spot this week for betting, for DraftKings, for everything because they are an extremely talented team, coming off a disappointing performance, and people have been playing them, and people are probably sick of losing with them. Although I think they did win on Sunday's slate. Is that correct? So
Yeah.
yeah,
They got their
so
first win on Sunday.
right, and but they weren't in the winning lineup if I remember correctly. But I can go back and check that. But anyway, I think that Fnatic projects really, really well. I mean, they just are, a crazy team. Like Hylissang and Whippo are gonna fight you at every single chance that they get, and now they have perfect partners that will come along with them in those endeavors. And I think at this point they've kind of figured it out and are ready to start winning some games again. I have made like 20 some lineups so far, and I think Fnatic was in like 15 of them or something like that because I just really really like them in this spot. I think that I'm not going to be alone in that idea. I think a lot of people are probably thinking like me, like, oh, nobody likes Fnatic right now. I gotta get in on them, and so I want to make a lot of combinations of them and see if I can get the right one. Because the interesting thing that happened with the slate that Misfits won, they were a dog, and the jungle captain 4-3 took down. I think they took down the 10K by themselves or something like that with the Razor captain. And I could easily see Selfmade being the highest scoring player on this slate. I mean, if he plays something like Talia or something like that, there's no reason he couldn't be. So I want a lot of combinations of Fnatic out there, and then I would probably make one or two hedges with Vitality just because I don't think Vitality's a bad team at all. I think that they have middle of the table players pretty much across the board, and that kind of team can pull upsets from time to time. So I would probably make one or two hedges with an 80 carry captain from Vitality just in case, because if Fnatic loses, they're gonna explode. They've done that pretty much every time, and the team that played Fnatic was at least a part of the three stack in a winning lineup, I think, in the first 2 days when they lost. So so I'll play a couple of Vitality hedges, but I'm very heavy on Fnatic on this slate, I think.
Okay, we'll kick it over to you, Michael. Fnatic versus Vitality. Who do you like? Who do you see winning this match?
Yeah, so my initial reaction is the same with Fnatic being the better team to play and people being skeptical after week one. Um, it's too bad that they didn't lose on Sunday because then we would have been in a much better spot. And Vitality lost on Sunday. Otherwise, we would have been in a better spot. On Sunday, they were actually talking of Vitality a lot. So if anybody's manipulated by the LEC broadcast and like Deficio was saying, I think Vitality is really strong. They have a bunch of really good players like Melitza, Komplabrov. They're all very good. Shigenda's a new player that's very good. Like I think that they are pretty good players, and I do um, think that they have good chances to win a lot of these matches. But in general, they might get to the point where they're overrated because of sentiment like that going around. The problem is that, like Alan said, I think in spots where Vitality wins this matchup, they're probably going to score a ton of points. Um, so the question becomes, what is the ownership of Fnatic? Um, because just by playing Vitality, you're creating lineups that are going to be a fraction of the ownership. of Fnatic, so you're instantly leveraging everyone that's playing, getting leverage against everyone that's playing Fnatic. For example, if you see some lineups that Fnatic fit really well into, maybe you just swap out Fnatic for Vitality, because everyone else that copies that same sort of lineup, just by switching out the one team, you're going to get a lineup that's much less owned with the same upside, maybe even more upside. The other thing I would do, I don't know these numbers, but for anyone watching who's going to spend more time researching this, you should look at how Vitality does in their losses. I I don't think that they're overly bloody. They don't strike me as a team that's going to be bloody in their losses, unless the other team kind of forces it to happen.
I would agree with that. I can pull that up, but I do think that Fnatic is that team that probably forces it to happen a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So in Vitality's first loss against SO4, they died 8 times. In their first win, they
That
got
was the
14.
basic game, yeah.
Yeah, in the first win, they got 14 kills, and in their second defeat, they died 14 times.
Yeah, so that does make them a pretty low
So
kills
it averages
per
out to
loss.
11.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of team. I just think that like Fnatic dictates the pace of the game more often than Vitality does for me. So I still would
Right.
would like this matchup quite a bit.
Sure.
All right. Well, if there's no closing thoughts on the slate, we can hop into building the single entry lineup. If you want to get that pulled up, Alan.
Yeah. Let me get us on the Discord call here. I do think that this slate tends towards more lineup building than I've been doing. Like I personally have built more lineups than I have for any other slate. And for this one in particular, just because, well, number one, the contest is better than a lot of them have been so far, and I think that there are just a lot of combinations that I could see winning the slate here. All right, now we're all there. We're gonna make it full screen. That you just saw me researching how the showdown slate works in the middle of our show there. That was still hanging out there. All right, so we're playing the $12 single entry.
Also, DocuSign landlord. Apparently, you're signing documents for your landlord.
Where's that?
Bottom left.
Oh.
In your downloads.
Don't dox me, people. All right, here we go. What a weird criminal that would be coming to this very niche DraftKings show to dox people. All right, so let's maybe start by talking through teams that we think we might want to target in this single entry contest.
Yeah, so I think Mad Lions, G2, and Fnatic are 3 teams that you should probably try to have an opinion on. It's like, if you think, I guess the most important team to think about is Fnatic, right? Because if you want to play that angle, I think it's a good angle, but I wonder how many people are going to say to play that angle. That's what I'm afraid of. I feel like that might be a popular take, even though I think it's probably the right thing to consider, like from a game theory perspective, where you're like, they didn't look good in game 1. Maybe other people are afraid. I'm going to play Fnatic. So, like, if you're trying to differentiate between 3 good teams that you think have good chances of being highly scoring, that's an easy way to pick a team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Do either of you have a preference out of those 3 teams?
I mean, I think, yeah, I do think that Fnatic, just by the virtue of like their price comparatively, like they're below Schalke in some spots. Niski is lower than Abadage is and stuff like that. So I think we could probably get a pretty good lineup around a Fnatic 4 stack.
Who would you want as your captain? I think the jungle take was pretty good.
Yeah, I'd be into that. I think that, yeah, it also helps us. It also helps us with our upside, right? Because it's not going to be the most owned Fnatic stack for sure in this
Yeah.
contest.
So let's think about what other jungler we want. So you're probably better off just trying to get as many Mad Lions, G2, and Fnatic players into your lineup as possible, because Schalke and SK, we're uncertain. Well, I guess every match is uncertain who's going to win, but they seem like the most volatile matchups. SO4 against SK and Misfits against Rogue. Like, probably stay away from those in this kind of tournament.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
So one thing that I do sometimes is I'll take, like, if there's 3 teams that I want to try to build a lineup for, I just click on those 3 teams specifically, and then I try fitting in all of the least expensive players, and that's in their role, and see what I can do with that.
I like that idea. In this scenario, I might want to try and do upset there. Oh, now we're outside of the rules, so we'll go back here, do Carzzy. Yeah, so this would be a straight, sort of 4-3 with Fnatic and Mad Lions. We have 800 remaining.
Yeah, I think I would prefer Carzzy Kaiser, and this is the kind of lineup where I would probably do the way that we have it on the screen, and then also flipping the junglers.
So Elioya becomes the captain in this scenario. Yeah.
And then also there's just so many ways to combine these 2 teams when you have jungle captains. So these seem like very good lineups to me. Just in general, like, very good lineups.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, this is basically like saying Mad Lions bot lane is going to get massively ahead through Elioya, and then the top side for Fnatic is going to get ahead and win. And I think both of those are very reasonable, and I like this lineup a lot.
Yep. So what do you think? Would you rather have Selfmade or Elioya as the captain, and then also would you rather have Mad Lions or Fnatic as the team? I think those are probably the 2 main questions.
Yeah.
Ghost, any thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess you have to ask yourself which one do you think is going to be more kill orientated. I think it might be the Fnatic side, if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, I think I think I do like Selfmade more. And like getting the jungler from Fnatic and making them your captain, you're also kind of saying that Selfmade will do better than Upset.
Yeah.
And even if you look at this lineup once again, you take out Carzzy, you throw in Upset, and then you have another pretty good lineup. And that's how a lot of these lineups are made, where you're just like, you think to yourself, I'm going to try to get these two teams as many times as possible. If it hits, then I'm going to hopefully cash a lot. And if it loses, then you might lose your entire however much you spent on the slate. But if you do that over the long run, you'll have a better chance to come in first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's assuming you're not playing 70 lineups.
For sure. And obviously in this particular contest, like, it's a single entry small field, so like we're just trying to play 2 teams that we're like, we think they're gonna win, we think they're gonna be bloody. But I totally agree. And this particular slate too, I think tends really well towards that kind of thinking. Like, you're trying to win the big one here, because I think it's a 10K to first, and the payout structure is pretty pretty unfriendly to not getting into the top. So if you're gonna play the GPP, you're playing to win.
Right.
Yeah.
But this one, I think this fits. The only question I would have here, I guess, is yeah, I think this makes sense. I don't have any issues with this one.
I guess if you really wanted to get really weird with it and you wanted to go the 3-team route, go 4-2-1, you could swap Kaiser for Hillisang and then get the G2 team slot. G2's, I don't want to say guaranteed, but it's Astralis. So that's like you're paying for G2 team because they're going to get the win more than not.
Yeah, I I
I
think
think
that
I
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I think it's
No, you go.
reasonable, but I do think that the problem is that uh, I mean, not that team upside really matters that much in the in the long scheme of things, but I would say that Fnatic and Mad Lions probably both have more upside in the team scoring than G2 does, just because I expect G2 to win so quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
and even a more even a simpler way to look at it is that with this lineup, we only need two things to happen. With G2, we need three things to happen. And like I think you both, I agree with both of you that if this was the big tournament, there's probably more of a reason to do that because there's more entries that you need to differentiate yourself from. But in a spot where there's 39 entries in this, I think you're fine just playing with the two. And if you chop a single entry, like it's
Yeah,
kind of whatever.
yeah, that's kind of the name of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm down to throw that in. Just in the interest of full disclosure, this is where we're at right now. But that's how it works when you
We're
play
due. We're due.
tournaments. Yeah, of course. That's definitely a thing that exists in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Is being due.
All right, we'll end with that note. I want to thank everyone for watching. This one is going to be free for everyone to check out. And if you do want to watch Saturday's LEC show, you can hop on over to the esportsdepartment.com, enter the code IEDGE for a subscription, and get 10% off of that. You get access to the projections, Fantasy Labs Builder. There's also CSGO if you like playing CSGO, DFS, and Gelati has picks for just sports betting in general. I want to thank everyone for watching. You can find me on Twitter at xghostwriter90. You can find Michael at League of Items and Alan at LCS Picks. Good luck on the slate and have a good weekend.
See
See
ya.
you.
Actually, one thing before we go, I would say, uh, help us to keep the show free and running and all of that by liking and subscribing on the esports department YouTube. So if you're watching, if you made it to this point, please like, subscribe, all of those things, and come back again on Thursday.
Good note.
All right. Peace.